Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I am ready to do my first impressions on this interesting little guy. This is the HEA Designs Hunter, and this is the first HEA knife that I have ever been hands-on with. I've never experienced any of these knives in person, but this is the model of theirs that has been most intriguing to me. In fact, there was a time when I almost purchased one of these for myself. So, at the moment, I have had this knife in pocket for about a whole day. The whole going to San Diego for a few days thing really kind of threw me for a loop in my carry patterns. So I am somewhat back to normal, although I'm going to be staying in a hotel another couple of days this week. But things should be kind of more of a normal vibe there. So let's talk about this knife a little bit and how it's been so far, and then there will of course be a full review once I've had it in pocket, totaling about a week. So this knife is it is a snappy little front flipper, first of all, and it has a very fun action. It's a very unique design, as are, in my opinion, all of the knives from HEA Designs. But yeah, I'm really kind of drawn to this one, like I said, more than any of the other designs that have come from HEA. And I don't know if it's the really cool clip point, or if it's the materials used, or the finishing that's done on this one, or what, but I kind of vibe with it. I'm liking it so far. I forget off the top of my head what blade steel they use on this guy, and it's not marked anywhere on the knife. So by the time I do the full review, I'll figure that out. I want to say it's M390, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's S35VN. I don't know. But I haven't done enough cutting with it so far that even if it was HCR13 MOV, I should see any issues with it. I've just opened a package or two with it, and I think I cut a tag off of a new shirt with it, and like very, very minimal light stuff. Although I will say, in opening the packages that I did with it, this tip is bonkers. It's really precise, and the way that it's ground out to the tip, it just, I mean, for making the initial incision into some tape, it is very, very good. It is one of the pokiest, stabbiest tips I've ever experienced on a knife. So that's kind of cool. Now, let's talk about the way this knife is finished and done, and I guess other than the blade steel, I should talk about the parts of this knife I do know what they're made of. The show scale is carbon fiber, and it's done very well. It's got this interesting milling on it, where it's kind of almost like divided into sections. It's got like kind of a crosshair vibe a little bit. It's got this divot here that almost looks like a bow drill divot on like an outdoorsy knife, although I don't think you'd want to use it as a bow drill divot on this one. And then we've got a titanium frame lock on the lock side. I like the way this lock bar is cut. Instead of one big channel, it's like kind of notches. Titanium clip. I believe all the hardware is titanium. I know at least the backspacer is. I'm not sure. I guess the hardware could be stainless. I don't know. But yeah, we do have a stainless steel lock bar insert, which doubles as an over travel stop and houses the ceramic bearing. So pretty cool little frame lock. We do have two methods of deployment. It is, of course, a front flipper. I like that a good metric of what I would consider a good front flipper is one that I don't need to like use any wrist for or anything. This one, I can kind of slow roll it out, but what I honestly meant to show you is if I get it right, I'm holding it weird, aren't I? If I get it right, I don't need to use any wrist. I just throw my thumb back and the blade follows. And so I like that this one is snappy enough that if I prime it right, I'm not having to whip my wrist to get it open. I see a lot of people with front flippers kind of using their wrist to assist it, and this one, the detent, is dialed just right. It does, of course, also have a hole for opening. Holes are greater than studs. I always say that. I like to be able to middle finger flick a knife open, and on this one it works excellent. I've got just enough access to the hole. It's a little tight getting my fingernail in there to make it work, but there is enough access that I don't actually have any issues with it. It's just not like bulging up like it does on a lot of Spydercos to give you a ton of access, but very easy to get my finger in there and go ahead and send the blade flying. So I like that. Yeah, let's talk about, so far, my impressions of this are, I'm trying to figure out kind of where I put it. I would say the size and weight and profile of this knife, honestly, at this point in time, for me, makes most sense as a secondary. And especially being a front flipper, I find that I wouldn't say I have hesitancy necessarily, maybe a little bit, of carrying a front flipper as my primary. A regular flipper or a hole for deployment or studs all feel just more like ingrained in my muscle memory. And I've mentioned before, I like the idea of my primary always being kind of at least a certain size and being very familiar to be able to get out of my pocket and deploy quickly and use. This, because it has the hole as well, I guess would really be fine there, but more so because of the size and the weight and all that. I put it as more of a secondary. And I like the idea of a front flipper as a secondary because it's fun for me when my secondary is a really fidgety knife, because then I don't feel as bad carrying an unfidgety primary, because I like to have something fidgety on me pretty much at all times. So yeah, I like this one as a secondary. The day that I carried it for a whole day, it was as a secondary. I've played with it a bunch since then, and I'm going to be carrying it today. But yeah, so far so good as a secondary. It's really fit well in that mold. The one thing that I would say carry-wise I would prefer out of it would be a deeper carry. And that's just me personally. I'm sure a lot of people are fine with this. But as you can see, the pocket is going to come to about there, and you've got all of that up here sticking out of your pocket. If it didn't have this big kind of spike here as well, it would be less sticking out of your pocket, but it's noticeable in the pocket when you glance over and you see all of this sticking up. It's not a deal breaker, certainly. It works fine. And the clip, in terms of retention, how it goes in and out of pocket, how it feels in hand, is all very good so far. So I don't dislike this pocket clip. I just prefer deep carry clips. And I think I'm a little more particular about wanting a deep carry clip when it's a secondary knife, because I want that to be even more kind of discreet and hidden. And especially I carry a back left pocket a lot of the time. I want it to kind of disappear there. But like I said, it's doable. It's fine. Yeah, so the sensations that I've gotten from this so far have all been quite positive. I like the way it feels in hand. These ergos work for me. I do get a full 4 fingers on here, although the kind of hump right here is a little bit, I wish it was a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, because I do find kind of goes right where this finger lands. It's super rounded though, so I don't find it to be uncomfortable. I just feel there's something pressing against my finger there, but it's not poking or jabbing me or anything. So yeah, if this groove was either longer or shorter, so that it was just my foremost, like my pointer finger, or if it was a little bit bigger to accept my 2 foremost fingers, that would be a little bit better. But yeah, it fits in hand well. I can also kind of choke back, and then my pinky starts to dangle off a little bit, but that feels good too. I can choke forward and get that finger all the way into the groove, and then my pointer finger kind of rests. There's a little bit of a flat here, and so it's a comfortable spot for my pointer finger to land, and that kind of choked up sensation gives me a lot of control over the blade, which I like. But yeah, where my hand naturally lands, it does put my middle finger a little bit less than ideal on that hump. Reverse grip is good as well. That's one thing that I kind of like about this fin-shaped thing on the back of the knife. It kind of rests the knuckle of my thumb very comfortably right there, and for the size of this knife being as small as it is, it feels pretty good and locked in a reverse grip, so I like that. Reverse grip draw cut, it's okay, it's fine. It wouldn't be ideal for long periods of cutting, but it'll work. Forward grip draw cut totally works. This is actually quite comfortable like this, so if you're doing draw cuts through material, it'll be good. But yeah, hammer and saber grip, the only real issue, calling it an issue isn't even fair. The only thing I would alter slightly would be that hump there and kind of the center of the handle. Yeah, I like the overall profile of this knife. I feel like they did a good job of making it relatively slim and small without making it so thin this way that it was uncomfortable in hand, because yeah, it fills the hand well for the size and profile of the knife overall. I wasn't expecting it to feel as substantial in my hand as it does. A lot of knives in this size don't feel as hand-filling as this, but it's kind of weird because it's not like a thicker than average knife. It feels like the appropriate thickness, and then the way that these scales are kind of contoured, that does wonders on just about any knife that I've had that's well contoured. Like if you look closely, come on, you'll see it's a little bit of a rounding around both the titanium scale and the carbon scale. And so what that does in the hand, it translates over really well into the ergos for making the knife feel more hand-filling, but it's obviously not like so rounded that it's not indexed either. It's still indexed well. I know right where the edge is anytime that it's in hand, and so I like that subtle contouring. It goes a long way. That's just a thing that I'm noticing more and more. Every knife that I have that does have contouring on it, I find that it's a thing that really kind of tickles my fancy. Yeah, I don't know much else of what to say first impressions wise. I'm looking forward to using this knife a little bit more. It is a loaner from my buddy Ryan. I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning. I usually do. I'll link down below to Ryan's Instagrams because he has his kind of paracord making. He makes bracelets and keychains and all kinds of cool stuff out of paracord. That's called Rimmer Designs. I'll link to that down below. But then he has his just kind of personal EDC Instagram as well, where you can see his cool EDC photos and what he carries and what he's up to. And he loaned this knife to me, so he's given me the go-ahead to carry it and use it, but I'm going to keep that relatively light because it is a loaner knife. It's not mine. So I want it to go back to him in the same condition it came to me in, and that's important to me. He's a buddy. So yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. I'm curious to see how it does with some more cutting. I want to pass it through some cardboard, not a ton, not enough to ruin this factory edge, but just to get a sense of how it passes through continuous sheets of material. I want to get it into a zip tie or two, feel how it does at pop and zip ties, and just kind of my normal EDC stuff, what I would see myself if this was my knife and I was carrying it regularly, the type of stuff I would encounter. So I'll be testing it for that kind of stuff, and so far so good though. This makes me more intrigued. I've heard so many people rave about HEA Designs, and like close friends of mine in the community who've owned multiple, some of whom have owned like all of his knives that he's come out with, and I just hear so many positive things about him. And I think frankly the reason why I haven't jumped onto his knives sooner is just more of an aesthetic thing, and it's good that people are making knives that don't look that aesthetically appealing to me personally, because that means other people who have different tastes than I do are going to find something that they love, and I like that diversity in the community. But I just find that a lot of his designs are a little too over the top for me. This one isn't, and especially now that I have it in hand and I'm seeing it in person, knives are inherently different when they're in person compared to when you're just seeing them in photos, and so it makes me intrigued. I do want to try some more of his knives over time, and I'm more open to giving them a shot after feeling how good this is. So yeah, I like this so far. I'm okay with the styling on it. If I'm being honest, it's still not my favorite looking knife that's out there, but there are components of it that really do speak to me, and as a whole I like it. I just don't like adore it. I don't look at it and think, wow, that's one of the coolest little knives I've ever seen, but it's good. And I'm sure for some people they will look at it and have that wow reaction, because that's how aesthetics work. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good launching point for me on this one. That's about where I honestly see myself on this first impressions wise. I'm liking it. I'm enjoying it as a secondary. The cutting I've done with it so far has been good, although limited. The tip especially is very acute. You can get it into things. And yeah, fit and finish feels nice. Action is fun. It's a solid front flipper that deploys the way a front flipper I feel should. And multiple deployment methods. Ooh, that was bad. Multiple deployment methods makes it even more fun. Yeah, it's a well done knife. I'm getting why I've seen quite a bit of hype behind not just his knives, but this model in particular. So that'll be my first impressions of this guy. This is the HEA Hunter. And thanks again to Ryan for loaning it to me. I'm looking forward to packing in some more experiences with it. It's a fun knife so far. So, appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.